The evening of February 3, 2023 will forever be etched in the memories of East Palestine residents. A Norfolk Southern freight train carrying hazardous materials derailed. The crash site, a mangled heap of steel and fire, became a symbol of industrial disaster. This was not just a transportation accident, it was an environmental catastrophe. The derailed cars carried a cocktail of chemicals, including vinyl chloride, a known carcinogen. Fear and uncertainty gripped the community as black smoke billowed into the sky. The derailment forced the evacuation of thousands of residents. Homes and businesses were abandoned. The air was thick with the acrid smell of chemicals. Emergency responders worked tirelessly to contain the blaze. The immediate danger was clear. The long-term consequences, however, were still shrouded in uncertainty. The incident in East Palestine was a stark reminder of the risks associated with transporting hazardous materials. It exposed the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure and the potential for catastrophic consequences. The disaster raised urgent questions about safety regulations, corporate responsibility, and the environmental impact of industrial practices. Faced with the risk of a catastrophic explosion, authorities made the difficult decision to conduct a controlled burn of the vinyl chloride. On February 6, 2023, a massive plume of black smoke rose from the wreckage, visible for miles. The burn was intended to prevent a larger explosion. It was a calculated risk, a desperate measure to avert an even greater disaster. The controlled burn released a mix of toxic chemicals into the air, including dioxins and phosgene. The decision to proceed with the burn sparked controversy, with many questioning its necessity and long-term consequences. Some experts argued that alternative solutions should have been explored. Others defended the decision as a necessary evil. The controlled burn cast a long shadow over East Palestine. The black plume became a symbol of the disaster, a reminder of the difficult choices made in the face of an unprecedented crisis. The long-term health and environmental impacts of the burn remain a subject of intense debate and concern. The derailment and subsequent controlled burn unleashed a toxic stew of chemicals into the environment. Vinyl chloride, a known carcinogen, seeped into the soil and groundwater. Other hazardous substances, including butyl acrylate and ethyl hexyl acrylate, added to the contamination. The environmental impact was immediate and devastating. Waterways were polluted, killing fish and other aquatic life. The air was thick with noxious fumes, forcing residents to wear masks. The soil, contaminated with hazardous waste, posed a long-term threat to human health and the ecosystem. The long-term consequences of the contamination are still unfolding. The chemicals released into the environment can persist for years, potentially affecting drinking water, agricultural land, and wildlife. The full extent of the damage may not be known for years to come. The derailment and chemical release had both immediate and long-term health impacts on the residents of East Palestine. In the immediate aftermath, many reported headaches, dizziness, nausea, and respiratory problems. First responders, working tirelessly amidst the toxic fumes, faced even greater risks. The long-term health effects of exposure to the chemicals released in the disaster are a major concern. Vinyl chloride is a known carcinogen, linked to an increased risk of liver cancer, brain cancer, and lung cancer. Other chemicals released in the disaster can cause respiratory problems, skin irritation, and other health issues. The emotional toll on the community has been profound. The trauma of the derailment, the fear of the unknown, and the uncertainty about the future have taken a heavy toll on the mental health of residents. The long-term health impacts of the disaster will continue to be monitored and studied for years to come. Section 5. A community in crisis. Voices from East Palestine. The derailment in East Palestine was not just an environmental disaster, it was a human tragedy. Thousands of residents were forced to evacuate their homes, leaving behind their belongings and their lives. The disaster upended their lives, leaving them with a profound sense of loss and uncertainty. The residents of East Palestine felt betrayed by the companies responsible for the disaster and let down by the government agencies tasked with protecting their health and safety. They demanded answers, accountability, and justice. Their voices, however, often went unheard. The disaster exposed the vulnerabilities of small-town America. where industrial accidents can have catastrophic consequences. It highlighted the need for stronger safety regulations, corporate responsibility, and a more responsive government. Section 6. Picking up the pieces. Recovery and monitoring efforts. The road to recovery in East Palestine has been long and arduous. Clean-up efforts have focused on removing contaminated soil, treating contaminated water, and monitoring air quality. Health monitoring programs have been established to track the long-term health effects of exposure to the released chemicals. The Environmental Protection Agency, along with other federal and state agencies, has been overseeing the clean-up and monitoring efforts. Norfolk Southern, the company responsible for the derailment, has faced intense scrutiny and criticism for its handling of the disaster. Despite the ongoing efforts, many residents remain skeptical about the long-term effectiveness of the cleanup. They worry about the lingering contamination and its potential impact on their health and the environment. The recovery process is far from over, and the scars of the disaster will likely remain for generations to come. Section 7. The fight for justice, legal battles and political fallout. The East Palestine train derailment triggered a wave of lawsuits against Norfolk Southern. Residents, businesses and local governments have filed claims for damages, alleging negligence, wrongful death and environmental contamination. The legal battles are expected to be lengthy and complex. The disaster also sparked a political firestorm. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle called for stricter regulations for the transportation of hazardous materials. The debate over rail safety, corporate accountability, and environmental justice intensified. The East Palestine derailment served as a wake-up call, highlighting the need for stronger safety regulations, increased corporate accountability, and a renewed focus on environmental justice. The fight for justice for East Palestine is far from over, and the outcome of the legal battles and political debates will have far-reaching consequences. Section 8. The long road ahead. Environmental restoration and health monitoring. The environmental restoration of East Palestine is a monumental task. Contaminated soil and water must be remediated. The long-term impacts of the chemical spill on wildlife and ecosystems must be carefully assessed and addressed. Long-term health monitoring programs are essential to track the health of residents exposed to the released chemicals. These programs must include regular health screenings, cancer registries, and epidemiological studies. Mental health services are crucial to address the trauma and anxiety caused by the disaster. The long road ahead requires a sustained commitment from government agencies, responsible parties, and the community. Transparency, accountability, and community engagement are essential to ensure the success of the restoration and monitoring efforts. Section 9. Preventing the next disaster, lessons learned and the path forward. The East Palestine train derailment was a preventable tragedy. It exposed systemic failures in rail safety regulations, corporate oversight and emergency response. The disaster underscored the urgent need for comprehensive reforms to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. Strengthening rail safety regulations is paramount. This includes requiring modern braking systems on all trains, carrying hazardous materials, reducing the length and weight of trains, and improving track maintenance and inspection protocols. Holding corporations accountable for their actions is crucial. This includes imposing stiffer penalties for safety violations, requiring companies to invest in safer technologies, and ensuring that they are held liable for the full costs of any disasters they cause. The East Palestine disaster serves as a stark reminder that we must prioritize safety, environmental protection, and public health over corporate profits. By learning from this tragedy and enacting meaningful reforms, we can work to prevent similar disasters from happening again.